is using the other to be a spokesperson, then I think it gets to be a little confusing. And
well, it sure is. I mean, it sure is. I mean, because right now, despite our affection for Clayton, we're kind of skeptical. Say, well, it's not unusual that parent company subsidiary would be backing up. It is a little odd, right? It's odd, and it may be completely innocent, and this may be extraordinarily accurate, but at the same time, because of the inbred nature of all of this, it does raise eyebrows, perhaps where eyebrows shouldn't be raised, or perhaps where they should be. I don't know.
It seems like spin control. If you want the honest to goodness truth, I put more faith and credibility in the report that came from Steve Weintraub and Collider.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm kind of with you. Now, if you look at Disney stock, it doesn't look good. Going back here, it's a little bit up and down. It's been in a downward trend for the last 5 days, and so some of these things. I mean, look, if you're a Disney shareholder and you're hearing that this slate of movies that you were promised was going to bring the company hundreds of millions of dollars are now on ice. We've got chaos happening at Lucasfilm, which I don't know how else would describe it. I mean, we can be good soldiers, but at the same time, the fact of the matter is, as much as I love Star Wars, you look at the body count, you look at the antagonistic attitude that is being taken by employees of Lucasfilm, and this kind of us versus them thing that's going on. And as you'll find out, later, we've got an email that we're going to share that kind of puts it all in perspective, at least from a corporate Disney point of view. It's just there's no other words really to describe it. It is not good. It's not a good scene, and I think that it's, at the end of the day, I think it's kind of like a big storm that comes in at springtime and just cleans everything off. And even though the storm is kind of ugly and scary and violent at times, at the end, I think you're dealing with something better than it was when it started. And I do believe that. I do believe that this is growing pains. I think Disney is trying very, very hard. But I think that they left the kid alone at home, and he was too young.
Well, I think it was just a case of too much, too fast. And
why? Why do you think that was, Jim? Why do you think?
Because they looked at what Marvel was doing and thought that Star Wars can, it's a square peg trying to fit it into a round hole. Star Wars depended on the strength of the mythology, depended on that incubation period between the films.
Yes, giving fans time to digest and assimilate, and I mean, as silly as it sounds, even just collecting all of the toys and the merch and reading the behind the scenes stuff. I mean, in the past we had years to just digest it all, and now it's coming at you so fast you can't help but feel that it's rushed. It's rushed. And if you look at I think a lot of the problems with The Last Jedi were that they simply didn't have time to really understand what was happening with The Force Awakens in order to create, a satisfying sequel to that. I mean, people say, it seems like, Rian Johnson wrote this thing having never seen Force Awakens. Well, guess what? He hadn't. No one had. He was writing this thing at the time that Force Awakens was still in production.
All right, so let me ask you a question. If things are being put on hold, what's the finish line here? I mean, if episode 9 is a huge success, fans love it, the box office public loves it, it makes a ton of money, Disney loves it, everyone loves it. It brings fandom back together. Then do you think they say, all right, go, and greenlight everything that's been put on hold? Or
no.
Yeah, they're going to start
their less.
Hopefully start showing a little more discretion and not barred out stuff that's important parts of this mythology. I think that's very important. And again, give us that time to let the mythology grow. The 3-year span between the saga films are definitely something that is an important part of that mix. You can have maybe one film you drop in right in the middle of that 3-year span. I think that would work much better. It really would.
I've got an analogy that I want to throw out there, and just bear with me on this. When you see a really, really great play, oftentimes it's the silences in between the lines of dialogue that say more than the actual dialogue does. And it's a hard thing to explain, but when the acting is so fantastic, whether it be the body language or what have you, or the pregnant pauses, when it's acted and performed so well, or even in a piece of music where it swells, it crescendos, and then it gets quieter, I think that, Jim, when you talk about that, a 2 or 3 year gap in between these, I think that those are just as important as what we're seeing on the screen, especially for fandom. The time to, as I say, digest, understand, make sense of, and add it to the existing mythology. I don't know what the right answer is, whether it be a year, 2 years, 3 years. I don't think there's necessarily a magic number. But having that time, and so time for the fans as well as time for the creative teams that are putting these things together. I think it was also just a dreadful, terrible mistake to think that they could do this trilogy of films without a singular vision behind it. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And you can say, well, George Lucas did it. George Lucas wrote that letter to J.J. Abrams and the folks behind Lost and said, well, my hat's off to you. Here's a dirty little secret. I too was making it up as I went along. But it was out of one singular guy's mind. So it's okay if it's out of one person's brain that you're making it up as you go along. But instead of playing this silly game of, I'm going to start out a story that I'm going to say, tag, you're it, and not give you anything else, and wonder why there's not cohesion and wonder why it creates division.
Well, you know what, I'm okay with that. Hey, let's just throw it up against the wall and see if it sticks. I think there's something to be said for that. But I agree that with property like this and with the wide breadth of the mythology, it did require a little bit more stewardship. And so that's why I think that after episode 9 is released, there still won't be any announcements about other plans to do any films or anything like that. All resources will go toward episode 9. In 2020, Bob Iger will most likely announce who his successor is going to be. And then at that point, that person is going to start segueing in as Iger works out through the end of his contract, which he has a contract signed through December 2021. The reason now, and Iger has made attempts to start his the progression of his stepping down, but he keeps getting his contract extended because of deals like the looming 20th Century Fox deal. So they want, the board of directors want to keep the consistency and the stability there in the big office. And so Bob is going to stick around until December 2021, which leads me to believe that in 2020, the decision about his successor will be made and announced. And the two of them will work together throughout the course of the following, the final year of Bob's contract. And, I mean, that's all just mere guesswork, but This is a big company. I don't see Bob's, saying, on December 2021, here's the new guy. See ya. I'm out. I think it's a very complex process.
No, you know what? If I had to guess, what the conversation might have been like, Bob Iger calls up Kathleen Kennedy and says, "There's a problem. Fix it." I kid you not. That's how it works. There's a problem. You fix it, or you're gone. Because if I'm Bob Iger and I'm seeing these headlines about Star Wars, being ripped down the middle and all of this contention, and I've got a $150 million loss, and essentially I agreed to bankroll 2 movies, or the cost of 2 movies for 1 movie, I'm not going to be very happy. This does not look well in this sort of wishy-washy, hire him and fire him. And now think about all the people that were associated most likely with the Kenobi film, with this Boba Fett film. Now these people, they're gone, right? I mean, I'm not trying buckets for them. They're going to go on to other things. These are, I'm sure, very talented people. So you add them to the body count. This is not good. It's a big town, but it's a small town. And you do not want people to go like Colin Trevorrow saying, you know what, it was a completely acidic environment. And, you're going to have people saying, ain't no way, I love Star Wars, but I'm not taking that gig. I'm not going to be the next Colin Trevorrow. I'm not going to be the next Phil Lord or Chris Miller. They don't want that. And Bob Iger and Alan Horn, they don't want that out there in the business, in the industry, saying that this is some sort of bad luck charm or kiss of death when you sign on to do something that should be, the highlight of your life, of your career. Working on a Star Wars movie should be a blessing. One other thing, speaking of breaking news, our friends over at Fantha Tracks, they hit on this over the weekend. Dateline June 18th, Fantha Tracks is saying, look, after 8 months at 3,000 posts, you're familiar enough with Fantha Tracks to know our main stock in trade is daily news and lots of it. So with that in mind, we're about to drop another juicy piece of news on you. Many would consider this a spoiler. So, in all fairness, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. Here you go. With the current mood of fandom and the bad smell that's permeating through Star Wars right now, it's time for some good, healthy, positive news, and that is that Billy D. Williams is back on board as Lando Calrissian for Episode 9. We were asked by our original source to verify this with another independent source before they ran with it. They did that, and they confirmed this is indeed correct. And before anyone asks, we're not going to name our sources again. That's not how it works. Filming on Episode 9 starts next month, so expect to see an official confirmation of this exciting news very soon.
Of course, this makes Billy D. Yes, Billy D. Williams returning to Star Wars. I feel like the filmmakers' hands were a little forced to bring Billy D. back because there has been resistance to the BDW in the first 2 films. You could have easily slotted him into The Last Jedi and had him been the contact that Poe and Finn reach out to track down the Master Codebreaker. That could have been Billy D. As a matter of fact, Billy D. could have been the Master Codebreaker. I mean, Lando Calrissian, why not? But there was an obvious reluctancy to bring him back because the way the dominoes were falling was Episode 7 was to be Harrison Ford, Han Solo's signing. Episode 8 to be Luke Skywalker, Mark Hamill's signing. Last person standing, Carrie Fisher, Princess Leia. Episode 9 was supposed to be her film. But of course, the tragedy of Carrie Fisher's death ruined all of those plans. So what other legacy character can you tap into to bring in to fill the void of no legacy characters in Episode 9? Well, it doesn't take a mathematician or a NASA scientist to realize Billy D. Williams, Lando Calrissian, let's get him back. Obviously, not the direction or the way the dominoes are supposed to fall, but you got to do what you can do to fill that void.
Right, they're running out of legacy characters to kill off, so they got to get Lando in there.
I mean, who's next?
So they
Wedge?
promptly dispatch him. Well, hey, don't count him out. Don't count him out. Remember, the past must die. Kill it, blow it up.
Well, too much.
Stab it in the chest in the heart and throw it off a bridge and then blow up the planet. I mean, if you really need, So that's the cynic in me. But I'm with you. I think that they're going to the BDW well, the Lando well, because they really didn't have a choice. They're left without these legacy characters. You might be saying, what about 3PO, R2, Chewbacca? I think they're around. I mean, we saw various marketing pieces and merchandise out there that features the future of Star Wars. And the future of Star Wars is Rey and Finn and Poe, Chewie, BB-8, and sometimes 3PO and R2. Depends on what lunchbox you're looking at. But they're in there occasionally.
Wait, General Reichian isn't on the list?
No.
Nine Numb. Now, Nine Numb they keep bringing back. Like he's going to be doing something in these films. He hasn't done anything in any of these films. And also,
he's definitely there. He's definitely there to give that original trilogy creature vibe.
They gotta
step that up. They gotta step that up.
I have to admit, as much as I love seeing Nine Numb in the sequel films, Nine Numb with eyelids kind of weirds me out a little bit. His face is too expressive. I need just like the flat-looking Nine Numb face. I can't recall if were his eyelids articulate in the original trilogy. They must have been a little bit.
You know what? I think they were.
Yeah, I do too.
But it's hard to say because the Ewoks weren't.
True.
And so they did the Blu-ray.
Right. And I don't mind that at all. I really don't. I mean, they blink. It's fast. It gives more life to those relatively lifeless masks. But with Nine Numb, there was almost he was almost more like wide-eyed. And then every time I see him in the sequel trilogy, he's got like squinty eyes, like he was hanging out with Bob Marley behind the trailer or something. But he's kind of got that look, and so I don't know. I kind of like the expression on his face as a puppet in Return of the Jedi. But I'm still very happy to see him in the sequel films because, like you said, Jason, it's something that ties us into those alien cultures from the original trilogy or the prequel trilogy, where there was tons of crossover. Obviously, Lucas put everything into the stew when it came to the prequel trilogy. In The Phantom Menace, you saw not only new amazing characters, but you would see the familiar, like the Greedos and the Hammerheads and the Bith. And even then from films like Jedi, you would have those Klaatu's and all those crazy characters. Like an Ishi Tib. How about an Ishi Tib for the sequel trilogy? Just one.
We have
just one.
We have an Ishi Tib.
Just one.
Ishi Tib.
Yeah, Starfish Wars. But come on, how about an Ishi Tib? Why not?
All right. Before we wrap things up here, I do want to talk about a couple of things here with respect to the Kelly Marie Tran story about Kelly Marie not leaving Instagram. She did delete her post, but the account is still there. And a couple of ladies who are no strangers to what Kelly apparently has undergone, the trolling, the harassment, all of that, have spoken out. And I want to share one here. This is a story that was on Mashable, but the interview originally took place in the Hollywood Reporter, and that is Leslie Jones, who starred in the Ghostbusters remake back in 2016, Ghostbusters 2016, the all-female reboot. She's also on Saturday Night Live. And she really became the face of online harassment. And people were vicious to her. And as if, the whole idea of this Ghostbusters film, whether you like it or not, was her idea. She's a hired gun. She's an actress, comedian, and she was cast in this film, and people were just brutal to her. But this is the advice that she gave to Kelly Marie Tran, which I thought was very interesting. Because the Hollywood Reporter just came out and asked her, do you have any advice for Star Wars Last Jedi? Kelly Marie Tran, who was facing the same kind of harassment as you. She says, definitely do not take that blank personal. I would tell her definitely not to take this blank personal. It don't have nothing to do with her, and I wouldn't have turned off my damn account. So she says, what I would do is I would screenshot every one of those offensive attacks, because when you do, they stop doing that blank. Trust me. And then you also make Twitter and Instagram responsible for that blank. What, you're going to have a public fight club? So, she's talked about this before, and what I appreciate here is that she's saying, look, the platform itself is also to blame. They let this stuff go on. She says, I understand you got free speech, I get it, but there has to be some guidelines when you let blank spread like that. So, she says what the, blank is wrong with people. And this honestly is a result of our society being an unhealthy society. So I agree with Leslie Jones on this point, that you've got to hold the platforms responsible for the
Hello, Vance. This is Robert. I'd like to get some fuel, please. I'm here at the Loves in Cumberland, Maryland. Thank you, sir. Yep.